Welcome to Chicko's Dustbin video show. Today's episode is The Ghosting, written and directed by Walt Hefner. The film opens up with some old dude in a white jumper suit, or as my friends in England would say, a boiler suit, giving some soliloquy that would give Shakespeare a run for his money, along with a very lame rendition of Worms. After he's finished, he starts laughing like an idiot, and the film's title appears. We see a long shot of a prison yard before some meathead psycho makes a jailbreak. He kind of looks like the dude who used to be on the old Hefty bag boxes. Looks like the old crusty meathead is burning off a few calories. His doctor at the state hospital prison calls the sheriff to let him know that the lunatic has escaped and is on the loose, and his name is Dan Markham, and he's totally crazy. My man's first night on the lam, and he wants to wet his whistle with some nasty Rainier beer. Shit, you know this was filmed in Washington. We get a shot from inside the tavern with the barmaid just hating life, having to serve these two dive bar divas. You got Howard Cunningham's sleazy brother, Carl, playing the bartender. You know this dude loves putting Mickeys and roofies into people's drinks. This dude's dialogue consists of dad jokes and innuendos. He thinks he's such a wit, like he's head of the Algonquin Round Table. The only paying customers of the night decided to blow this popsicle stand rather than stay and listen to any more dad jokes. Danny Boy decides to get into some homicidal affairs when he finds his favorite implement. The barkeep notices one more patron, the local doctor and former preacher, whom he invites over to the counter for a drink on the house. The bartender talks to the doctor to let his waitress and husband stay in his old church as caretakers since the old one vanished from the place a few months ago. She's on her way to pick up her husband and the kiddo, but the battery seems dead in her car. Never buy a die-hard battery, because they're always failing. That's why Sears went out of business. The clicking of the dead battery is like a mating call for a movie psycho as he springs into action. Amy the barmaid calls her husband Ralph to come get her because the car just died. He asks his dad if he could go borrow his station wagon to go get his wife. But Pop sits there quietly, petting his pussy cat while watching old war movies on his Zenith. We get another long tracking shot of our movie psycho running in the moonlight. But Ralph accidentally hits the psycho with his car, whom he then proceeds to get into an argument with about who's at fault. Despite hitting an axe-wielding maniac, he knows his insurance is going to go way up. The psycho tells Ralph some cock and bull story about how he was on his way home to see his wife and kids before he was ran over, and he demands Ralph to take him home. Sadly, our axe-wielding meathead expires in the back seat, causing Ralph to have a mini breakdown. Ralph is freaking out on deciding what to do with the dead body when a car drives by, being driven by the psycho meathead who just died in the back seat, giving him a severe case of deja vu. Ralph finally picks up Amy, but they start arguing about having to leave her car. But Ralph is in no mood for any kind of shenanigans tonight, especially after he just whacked a dude with his car. Amy shows Ralph the church they're going to live in rent-free if he decides to become the caretaker, but he balks at the idea and starts acting like Jack Torrance if he bought him off of Wish.com. Doc finally shows up to give the couple a grand tour of the church. You know, this movie is reminding me of a superficial remake of The Shining, but without the dark humor, satire of the American nuclear family, and selfish people in general. Mr. Ullman, Doc shows the the Jessups around the church grounds. The local fuzz, when they're not killing African-American motorists who have a headlight out, rouse Ralph as he leaves the church before Doc tells the cops to let him go. Ralph finally got his wake-up call. One of the cops, who looks like Detective Kinderman from the Exorcist movies, tells Doc that Markham escaped from the Lindy Bin and is probably heading back here. After the cops leave, Doc tells the family about the horrible secret of Dan Markham and why the church is empty. Ralph, instead of going to the police with the dead body of Markham and getting the key to the city, decides to bury his body in a shallow grave, under the moonlight. And after a short car trip, the family manages to make their way to to the church. Charlie visits his son Stevie's room that's in the cellar, but he starts having one of his Vietnam trips about burning flesh, much to his son's dismay. The daughter Jeannie discovers the baptistry, which looks like a cross between a jacuzzi and a Turkish bath. Amy's washing the dishes when suddenly the water shuts off. She turns around and the kitchen door slams shut. Then all the dishes come crashing down. There's some strange things going on around here. For a split second, we see a shadowy figure standing in the doorway and a shot of a creepy spider. Daddy's home. Steve is getting a glass of tap water when he looks out the window and finds a new plaything. From the looks of it, a snake pelt. Amy tries to make her lame daughter walk without her artificial foot, and she falls flat on her face. Jeannie catches Stevie pinning the snake pelt on his wall, and he bribes her with a candle that looks like this film's hatchet man, Dan Markham. Ralph starts whining how hard it is to interview for a job as a short-order cook and why his wife is a barmaid. Then he starts ranting and acting like a Dollar Tree Jack Torrance. Ralph goes to the bathroom to treat his eccentric headache number 80 and realizes that damn Stevie played the old eyeballs and the glass gag on him again. Stevie and Ralph have a son and father talk after he sent him off to bed for being a constant ass to his older sister. After tucking his son into bed, Ralph starts hearing strange sounds and noises coming from all around the church. Scared by the strange voices, Ralph grabs a giant kitchen knife and stalks around the house like he was back in Nam and almost guts his own son when he sneaks up from behind him while he was snooping around the basement. Later on that night, Ralph has another Shining/Vietnam terror and starts hacking away at the bed. Oh wow, it surely didn't take him long to totally lose his marbles now, did it? Amy was none too pleased when Ralph decided to wear Dan Markham's maggoty jacket to bed. And he's none too pleased when she tries to burn the jacket in the kitchen sink with a roll of paper towels. Ralph begins to have visions of Dan Markham while his wife and son question his sanity. We see Hatchet Man Markham overseeing the ghostly doings around the church. This time he decides to fill the baptistry with a snake. Spooky, spooky, spooky. Poor Snakey. He'll do anything to escape this bored-ass film. Oh wow, must have been one of those gremlin snakes, because one of them became half a dozen as soon as it hit the water. And now we get a baker's dozen. The ghost of Markham commands a sleepwalking Stevie to show his dad how the baptistry works. Stevie walks into the snake-filled water and begins to scream, waking up his parents. His dad manages to get Stevie out of the baptistry while his mom takes him back to bed. Ralph calls out the ghost of Markham while his wife asks if he's going crazy. Amy tells her son to stay away from them horror films, but he says they can cause all this craziness, while Dad says he'll take care of the baptistry. Ralph's buddy, who's a snake wrangler, was wondering how did all these exotic snakes get here. You know he's going to make a fortune from this. Ralph has one of his crazy trips while watching the snake wrangler bagging the snakes. We're treated to a montage of Jeannie chatting up with the creepy bartender's son. The dude asks Jeannie to go out, so she looks for something to wear, but finds an icky stained outfit on the bottom of her closet and slut scrawled on her mirror. Suddenly, the mirror breaks, chains wrap around her legs, and the toy monkey from the cover of Stephen King's Skeleton Crew starts playing. Jeannie's screams alerts her mother, who runs in to find her daughter cowering in the corner of her room with her lipstick done in the style of the lead singer of the Addicts. I guess she is the Joker in the pack. We get a glimpse of Jeannie's date with Peter at the movies. Oh great, Dollar Store Jack Torrance is having another one of his Vietnam trips. Ralph is thinking what we're all thinking. Oh Lord, when will this movie ever end? A ghostly voice asks Stevie if he wants to come out and play. The ghost leaps out and tries to attack him in the form of a cheap-ass dinosaur. Pops tries to help Stevie, but he gets one of those pain-in-the-ass hot pan burns from the red doorknob. So he grabs a 2x4 and yells, "Ho!" like Hacksaw Jim Duggan, only to have a cheap-ass dinosaur head to pop out like a jack-in-the-box, along with Markham's ugly-ass mug. The door to Stevie's room opens, and he's nowhere to be found. Jeannie asks her dad to call the cops, and he says, "What do they know?" And he calls out Markham once again. Amy comes back during the middle of her shift at the dive bar to scold Ralph for losing her son, but for some reason, he's in the hospital. Stevie is in the emergency room after being found on the side of the road. a victim of a hit and run. How did he teleport from his bedroom into the middle of the road? Ah, one of the mysteries of life. Jeannie's home alone when she hears a voice asking for help. But the voice leads her to old Malcolm, who's hiding in the multicolored shadows. Markham is outfoxed by Jeannie, who runs off into the church pews and distracts him with her leg brace before her parents come to save her. Ralph admits to the family that he killed Markham with his car the night they came to look at the church. Amy asks the question we all want answered. Why didn't he just go to the police? But he says he didn't want to go to prison. Yeah, for accidentally killing a homicidal maniac, I'm sure he's going to get deuce 5 to life. Ralph tells his family to leave, and he calls out Markham once again, and this time he answers as the two match wits. Amy thinks Ralph is loony trying to fight a dead man and says deuces, but Jeannie wants to stay and help Pops. Check it out, folks. Markham's having just a gay old time. Markham makes the first move and attacks Jeannie while she's asleep. The two play a game of tag where Ralph chases Markham into the church and he appears on the cross, igniting Ralph's belief in religion. Markham mocks his faith. Oh, now we're entering Exorcist 3 territory, folks. Ralph tells Markham that he's a manifestation of everything that's wrong with him in his life and attacks him while he's on the cross, but he just laughs while being drenched in blood. Ralph wants Jeannie to come with him to dig up Markham's body, but she tells him that Mom has a car and just wait until tomorrow. But he tells her he can't be digging up bodies in daylight. She calls up Peter for help and finds out her mom's there with him, but she gets off the phone after leaving a rambling message when her dad says, "Get your ass out here." Ralph and Jeannie go to the gravesite to dig up Markham's corpse, who starts to wake up. As soon as the fresh air hits it, it starts bubbling blood and gurgling, much to Ralph's dismay. Unlike his jacket that Amy tried to burn earlier in the movie with a roll of paper towels and a match, Markham's corpse instantly bursts into flames, grabbing the attention of Jeannie. After the flames die down, a watery sinkhole appears and a creepy hand tries to drown Ralph. Jeannie tries to pull her dad out of the sinkhole, but Markham's corpse's grasp is too strong despite all of her efforts. Peter and Amy arrive just at the nick of time to pull Ralph out of the sinkhole while the skull of Markham watches. Amy and the family finally believe Ralph's crazy story, while Peter asks why didn't he just wait until daylight. The next day, Ralph is smoking and contemplating life near a Vietnam Veterans Memorial and disappears from the film. The movie ends with Amy alone in bed, being awakened by the telephone. She answers it, and all she hears is the laughter of Markham on the other end, setting us up for a sequel that nobody wants to watch, because nobody even saw this one. This movie commits the ultimate sin of all bad movies, being boring. I mean, it started off as a superficial remake of The Shining, if you take away the satire of the nuclear family and the psychological horror of domestic violence. But by the end, it turned into a hodgepodge of 80s horror films, along with a religious nod to The Exorcist 3 without the Catholic dogma. I'm so glad this one was over. It was a real chore to sit through, folks. The man who made this turkey, Walt Hepner, sold his drive-in theater to finance this film. Talk about a bad investment. He made one more film in 2008, a horror film called Bad Ghost, but it looks like a copyright release, similar to what Ula Lamel did for The Boogeyman. This concludes another episode of Chicko's Video Dustbin Show. My name is Chicko Dee, and I hope to see you soon at your local video store. Goodbye now. Why